Good morning, Geek Dre Nation.
I'm Drake the True Snake.
I'm Kane Martin.
And I just woke up. Morning.
Oh! Good morning, Cake Dre Nation. Welcome to another episode of I Just Woke Up. Welcome back, guys. It's been a while. It's been about a week. I apologize for not being able to get any episodes up last week. It was Thanksgiving break, Thanksgiving week. Me and the wife were out of town for most of the week, and we're pretty busy. But we're back, and I'm excited to bring you guys today's episode. Alright, so today's episode is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to try out another new segment, and most of this was actually pre-recorded last week. I was hoping to get this stuff out last week, but I didn't get a chance. But anyways, there is something new though. But before we get started on today's episode, there's one quick thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. I did it. I finally caved. Over Black Friday, me and the wife got a PlayStation 4. That's right, we've graduated to the next gen consoles. And the cool thing about it is there's software already on the PlayStation 4 that allows you to do video game captures. And I've been wanting to buy a game capture for a while. I probably will still buy one in the future. But for now, I am able to capture my gameplay and do game commentary. It's something that I've always loved and I've always wanted to do on YouTube. And not just because, like, oh, every YouTuber in the world does game commentary, but because it's fun and I enjoy playing games. And we've done some game commentary here on the channel in the past. You know, there's Cake Games. You can check out the link in the description to that playlist where we, where Drake and Chance from Ironically Smart played Mario Kart and Golden Axe on the Wii. And so I wanted to get your guys' opinion. I want you to do something that's very important. Post in the comments what you think, if you would like to see some game commentary on the channel. It wouldn't be a lot. It would probably be like a video a week. And so yeah, because I would love to play some PlayStation 4 games and record it and see what you guys think. Remember, leave your comments below. Yes, I want to see game commentary. No, I don't want to see game commentary because everybody does it. Or all your thoughts on it, because we really want your input. And I don't want to do it just for myself, for my own fun, but I want to do it for you guys. So let us know what you think. Let's kick off the show. But first, it's Monday, and you know what that means. We got some manly advice for you. Let's check it out.
And now it's time again for classy advice for the manly guy.
Hello! Welcome back to Classy Advice for the Manly Guy. I'm your host, Kane Martin, and today's advice is holding the door open for ladies. Show everybody that chivalry is not just a medieval warfare computer game, and that it's not dead. Holding a door open has many advantages for the man. If you are in a relationship, it can improve the status of said relationship. If you're not in one, it can greatly improve your chances of being in one. And also, it's healthy. It's a good arm workout, good for your biceps, triceps, and forearms. So start cranking those hinges and turning those knobs. Push, pull, do whatever it is you need to do to make sure that that lady gets in that building without having to use her arms. Hold the door open, gentlemen, and keep it open. Thank you for sticking around for Classy Advice for the Manly Guy. Movie Talk Monday, where we talk about movies on Monday to start your week out with movie talking about movies, talking about Monday movies. So today, for Movie Talk Monday, our first ever Movie Talk Monday. I wanted to talk about the fantasy genre of films, specifically high fantasy. Now, high fantasy is a term coined for big, epic, not all epic fantasy is high fantasy, but all high fantasy is epic fantasy. And high fantasy is identified by its really intricate, in-depth, and broad scale of fantasy world. Things like Lord of the Rings, the Elder Scrolls games, even Game of Thrones. These are all considered high fantasy because they have very intricately designed and very broad fantasy worlds. And it's something that's very rare in film. Now, fantasy movies have been around for a long time, and there's not really a shortage of fantasy movies. Disney has supplied fantasy movies for kids for years, and there are countless amounts of children's fantasy movies. But high fantasy is something that hasn't really been explored a lot in the film genre. It is a very narrow, very small amount of high fantasy films. You have movies like Lord of the Rings, and really that's about it. The Lord of the Rings Hobbit movie franchise is really the only film franchise to tap into the high fantasy genre. We've had a couple of big fantasy genres like Harry Potter, Pirates of the Caribbean, but they're not really high fantasy. And fantasy is a really difficult genre to do because high fantasy is big budget. There's a lot that goes into it because you have to build this entire world. You know, the Hobbit movies and the Lord of the Rings movies were not cheap to make, and I think that's a big part of why there aren't more high fantasy movies or even just large budget fantasy movies. It's kind of a big risk for a studio to take on because you are building this world from the ground up, and fantasy isn't like science fiction where it's grounded in logic. Sometimes it is. You have things like Game of Thrones, which is high fantasy, and it's very successful. And that's because it's very politically grounded. Game of Thrones doesn't explore that much fantasy. Now, it is technically high fantasy. There is a lot of lore, but that's really all background stuff. The show itself is grounded in more realistic political messages and political themes, and I think that is why it's more approachable and not as big of a risk for studios. And by minimizing the amount of actual fantasy in the show, they also kind of minimize their budget. Now, with something like Lord of the Rings or Chronicles of Narnia, if you minimize the fantasy, you kind of ruin the whole thing. It's a real driving force is the fantastical world and the environment. Now, in light of this, we have, of course, the last Hobbit movie that's coming out in 1 month, and so that's a really big deal. But in the future, we actually have the World of Warcraft movie, based off the video games. Now, I'm not a fan of the video games, I haven't played them, but I am a fan of fantasy, and I'm really excited for this movie because it is a high fantasy movie, and it's a big budget, and it has some promising people behind it, and some really cool new technologies that they're applying, and it applies a lot of really new motion capture techniques that we haven't seen in a movie before, and so I'm really excited for that. So post in the comments what your thoughts are on the upcoming Warcraft movie and on high fantasy movies in general. Now, I think that a lot is riding on this Warcraft movie for high fantasy because Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit is ending, the Tolkien universe in cinema is coming to a close. We probably won't see much of Middle-earth or any of Middle-earth in film for quite a long time. So the torch has got to be passed on to somebody. And if the Warcraft movie is really good and does really well, we might see Hollywood opening itself up to the high fantasy genre, being more welcoming. Because we're already seeing that a little bit in these live action retellings of classic fairy tales that Disney has been doing, like Maleficent. Maleficent is pretty close to a high fantasy epic. It's right there on the cusp, and it shows that Hollywood is willing to invest money into big budget fantasy picks. And so far they've been doing really well. So yeah, I'm excited for the future of the genre because it's something that I really love. It's something that I think is really awesome and has a lot of potential. So post in the comments what you think, and that has been the first ever Movie Talk Monday on Monday about movies, where we talk on Monday. Movie Monday. Talk Monday. Movies. Alright guys, well that's all we got for you today. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode, but remember, post in the comments below what you think about the new segment, the Movie Talk Mondays. If you like that, we'll do that every Monday. We'll talk about something, and remember to comment about the video game Let's Plays and commentaries. If you would like to see that, I can get one up this week. So your input is extremely important to us, and it is vital to the future of I Just Woke Up, and we love to hear from you guys. And also, just want to give a quick shout out to our buddy Derek Orstiak. That's Derek W148. Go check out his channel. Be a link in the description. He does great things. His show, Wrestling Talk, just finished the second season, and the third season's coming next year. So be sure to go and get caught up on that, and look forward to some awesome collabs. And you can go check out the old collabs we've done with him. But support our friend Derek up in Canada. He's a great friend and a true fan of Cake Drain, and we're a true fan of him over there and Wrestling Talk. Even if you're not into wrestling, his videos are great and fun and very informative. And so we love you, Derek, and we love you guys, Cake Drain Nation. So peace out, and remember, Bruce!
My butler's gone, he went away.